Now, the thing about the header documentation that we just defined for the delete items ID endpoint is that this exact same header documentation and header example documentation is going to be used by several of our other endpoints, including our post items endpoint. So, obviously what we could do is just simply copy these lines and then go and paste them up here in the post items endpoint. But there's a better dry way to do this, and that's by using the @API define param. So let me show you how that works. So we'll go to the top of the file now, and I'm just going to create a doc block up here, and I'm going to use the @API define param, and then I'm going to provide a unique name for this one. I'm going to call this auth header. Then I'm going to come down to the delete items ID endpoint, and I'm going to cut out the header and header example from here. And I'm going to go up here. I'm going to paste those in. Let me just fix the formatting here as well. Now, of course, we'll need to also cut the ESLint exception and put it up here so that it covers the offending line. Oops. There we go. So with that done, what we can do is come back down to our post items endpoint, and we can now use that predefined doc section by simply adding the parameter @API use and then putting the name of it there. And what I'll do is I'll copy that, and we're going to do exactly the same thing with the delete items ID endpoint. And so that now they both will have that little piece of documentation. Now, once the site rebuilds, you can see in our post items endpoint, we have the header and header example, and the delete one does too. Another place that we can make good use of the @API define parameter is for the request body that we've documented here in the post items endpoint. Since the patch items ID request, they'll also need to have the exact same parameters documented. So let's create another one of these @API define blocks. And this one I'm going to call item request body. And again, I'm just going to come down here and I'm going to cut out all the lines that we'd need. So we'll get all these here. And then paste that in there like that. Just fix up that formatting. And now what I can do is come down to post items and go API use item request body to use it. I've now documented the patch items ID endpoint as well. And this endpoint uses almost exactly the same documentation as the post items endpoint, as well as the delete items endpoint. And this one also uses both the auth header and also the item request body. Coming to the doc site now, we can go to update an item, which is our patch items ID endpoint. And you can see that that's now been nicely documented as well.